Hi, this is Scott Garibay. Today we're going to talk about Jon Stewart. So, Jon Stewart, he really changed news probably forever. And I think what Jon Stewart really did when he had his show was he started reporting news and as a comedy bit, right? And it really it transformed news. Truman Capote, he wrote true crime novels like he wrote true crime like novels. And what Truman Capote did is massive. He really changed how true crime is looked at today. And so basically the idea is that an author would come in and they would write a true crime, and they would write it in a novelistic way where it was just really inviting you in, and it just felt like a story, right? And Jon Stewart really changed news to the point where people really felt the most engaging, most comfortable way to receive news was through comedy, right? And once he had done it so well that no one had ever done it like him before, he really kind of drove the stake into the ground and said, we're going to hold the pen up with this, right? And what's interesting is he had his show, then he went away for a while, and it seems like retirement's never real anymore. Like he came out of retirement, and he made a really junk movie with Steve Carell, I think it was Steve Carell, about politics. I watched it. It was not good. And then he came back and he started his new show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, and so Breaking Points was covering him, and he said something interesting. He said, I have a problem with news as narrative, right? It's one thing to report something, and it's another to direct something. And so he's saying that right now he feels like many outlets of mainstream media are directing America into a war posture in Ukraine, right? And so it was really interesting because he was saying, they're directing the news, right? And I don't like that. I don't like news as narrative, right? Because there's one thing to report something, and there's another thing to direct something. And I do think he's 100% correct. The news absolutely can direct institutions, government agencies, nations into action, into direct action. I think it's happened many times, right? And so this idea of news as narrative is very real, right? But I found it was incredibly disingenuous for Jon Stewart to say, I don't like news as narrative, right? And the reason why is he laid the bedrock for news as comedy, news as a joke, news, the idea that news isn't serious, right? And that in order for people to listen and to be engaged with news, there's got to be a joke in it, right? And this would be like Oppenheimer saying, I don't like fireworks, right? Like you're the wrong person to say I don't like this major change in news. Like, he fundamentally changed news at the root level, right? And so to come back later and go, I don't like news as narrative. Well, what about news as comedy? Like, you made it, right? Like, you cemented it. You drove the stake into the ground, right? So the idea that, that only John gets to decide a new direction for news, but others can't, right? Others can't do news as narrative. Only he can do, I'm going to make sure that everybody knows news is a joke, right? And so, the reality is, we live with the consequences of our actions. Boy, people are learning that today. Well, maybe not. Maybe there won't be any consequences. We'll see, right? Actually, I think there have already been some consequences in some very recent occurrences. So I just found it outrageously ironic, to see somebody who changed news fundamentally and turned it into a joke at a very high level. Like, millions and millions of viewers now are like, I don't want to listen to news that isn't funny, right? And fundamentally change news for decades to come, and saying, I don't like news as narrative. Like, only I get to change news at the fundamental root level. I thought it was incredibly disingenuous on his part and very self-unaware. I am very aware, it's hard to see ourselves, right? So I don't think Jon Stewart's like, I change news forever, but only I'm allowed, right? So I don't think he can see it because he's too close to it, right? And because I speak publicly, I'm very aware that people can see your flaws a lot more closely than you can. Because, boy, it don't take them long to say it in the comments below, right? Like, so it is very interesting. So I just thought this was really an unusual statement. And I think I get why people are moving to news as narrative, and it's very interesting. I'm not sure I'm actually opposed to it. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'll have to give it more thought, but that's my thought on Jon Stewart saying I don't like news as narrative. Only, essentially leaving unsaid. Only I get to change news forever. It's pretty ridiculous. What's your thoughts? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.